Alright, folks, at this time, I'd like to call the Common Council of the City of Blacksburg, New York, Financial Community Development meeting to order. It's November 10th, 2 p.m. First order of business is approval of the minutes of the October 11th, 2022 Financial Community Development meeting. Motion. Councilor Bob, second by Councilor Snell. Any changes, alterations, or deletions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Item 2.1, draft resolution awarding consulting services for the zoning and subdivision code update. Motion. Councilor Bob, second by Councilor Kelly. Discussion. I got your email. I will address that. But this item is to approve the award of the zoning code rewrite, which we all know has been much needed for the last 25, 30 something years. It does go part and parcel with the approval of the comprehensive master plan, which is on the docket for the next couple of weeks as well. To address Councilor Kelly's question about the funding piece, the council has awarded and funded this from the general fund, with the understanding that we do have a number of grant applications to back pay or back fund this if those grant applications are successful. Furthermore, I am in conversation, and we've had, I'm a member of the policy committee for NICOM, and part of that policy committee has been discussing the need for housing support and additional support from New York State, which includes funding for zoning code rewrite. So ideally, we will continue to advocate for funding this outside of general fund expenditures. Otherwise, ARPA is certainly a viable mechanism for funding this piece. It just really depends on what our priorities are using that money for parts of the.
Looks like to say, Mayor, that I read that proposal very carefully, and it's comprehensive.
Very much. Yeah.
They're gonna do a good job.
Yeah.
We pass this.
Yeah. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you didn't have anything on, any numbers on how much each of these bidders cost? Is that part of one of the other number strategies? Was there a big difference?
How much they cost?
Yeah, well, like, there's 4 places that bid them.
What was did they include their expense?
They did. Each one of them included it. It wasn't specifically included in the matrix, but it was part of those criteria. It was the proposed, it's the criteria that's the 4th down. So it was part of the consideration.
Okay, thank you. That's
Yeah.
answered my question.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Roll call. I'm sorry, I'll just all in favor. All in favor, move to the regular meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 2.2, draft resolution for AEA service agreement for expanded survey of the Saranac River Phase 2 improvements, and this is also funded by the New York State. What is that?
It's funded by the capital projects funding that's already been allocated to Saranac River Phase 3.
Motion. Councilor Bob, second. Councilor Canals, discussion.
Yeah, I just like a little explanation. I tried to follow it on the schematic, but.
Matt, I'll have you chime in here, yeah, because we all know that the phase 2 has been complete. Why are we going back to do a survey of a project that's complete? Matt can explain the need for it, and it is tied into additional funding for this project.
Yeah, because that was a piece that was highlighted in yellow. Is that what was?
So I'll give everyone the full story. In 2016, as part of the $500,000 New York State Parks grant that was awarded to supplement the funding for Saranac River Trail Phase 2, one of the things that New York State Parks requires as part of all of their grant programs is a formal survey of all areas to be improved with the funding that's being provided from the grant. So in 2016, a survey was completed for a narrow What at the time, all of that $500,000 in parks funding was to go into, which was effectively the new Stern Street Bridge. That was submitted in 2016. The project went through a series of design changes between then and when we actually went out to bid. Some components were added to that parks grant, the kind of outdoor classroom space. Mike, I know you know what I'm talking about. And one or two other interpretive panels related to the bridge were added to it so that the outline and the survey that was originally submitted did not encompass the full footprint of all of the improvements that were eventually funded by that $500,000. So we sent all of the reimbursement materials to New York State Parks for that grant roughly 6 or 7 months ago. They finally got back to us with their feedback, and one of the things they requested was an updated survey map that reflected the increased footprint of these improvements. I attempted to submit a just very crudely drawn map based on the as-built drawings. New York State rejected that and said that we needed a formal survey, at which time I reached out to the original surveyor of record. Their current workload would not allow them to get to this for probably another 6 to 7 months. They recommended I reach out to the local surveyor, which is what point I reached out to AEA and asked them for the quote that is before you for approval today. So upon their completion of that expanded survey and submission to New York State Parks, we will eventually get that $500,000 grant funding back, counted against the money that's already been spent out of the capital project. And because the final construction cost came in about $100,000 lower than was originally approved, there is no further funding that needs to be allocated for this. It would simply be drawn against that $100,000 surplus that's already in the capital project.
And it's a what, $5,000, $5,000.
Yep.
$5,300.
Thank you for the explanation.
Sure.
Great.
I was just curious because.
Yeah.
I couldn't make sense you say it.
I think it was. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 3.1, discussion of 2022 year-to-date report. Questions for standard report? What do you have?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Narrative. Report was under this time.
3.2, discussion of various reports. As requested, the unappropriated unassigned fund balance expenditures, transfer these in there. Categorized much like it was last year compared to what we had last year. Not much. If there's any comments or discussions on that, we had spent less this year than we had last year. Got about $140,000 reimbursement from FOB. You'll see that some of these costs required for expenditures included inflationary measures, expense for gas and fuel, increased expense for underfunded vehicle fuel and supplies, IT costs that were increased this year as well. I think the biggest ticket on there is the zoning code rewrite, $50,000 for the council. And then also understanding that there was litigation in there.
I do have some questions about the ARPA money. ARPA money.
Yes.
How much have we been awarded in ARPA money?
$2.2 million.
How much of that have we actually spent?
We've spent none of that money. We've allocated, we've assigned $500,000 to park improvement already.
That. Is there any other place that we have determined where that will go? When we get the Friday cash report.
Yep.
From, I'm assuming it comes from you. Goes through the various people and comes into our inbox. The first line that is called the cash balance. Is ARPA money included in that total? Where does that reside in the overall funds? Is that where it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so that $4 million right now still includes the 2.2 million.
Correct.
So 500,000 of that, I know we had that resolution months ago to allocate towards the parks, but we haven't actually spent it yet.
Correct.
It hasn't
Well, I think
been-
we spent some of it towards the contracting costs.
Have we made a firm commitment of the rest of that money? We've talked about, oh, we could do this with the ARPA money, we could have Did that, yeah,
I think that I've been a bit hesitant to just say we can do this or that with this ARPA money. I think it needs to be very specific in terms of if we're gonna spend it towards something that is an improvement and not something that's going to create incur costs or ongoing costs. We're not, like, don't create it for a program that, once that money dries up, then we gotta find money to then fund that program. It certainly has been my position to use that money to improve our parks, as a means, for, if you will, free money to make those types of improvements. Rather than putting them towards something that is a bit less tangible,
Are there any restrictions on that money from the government?
not anymore, I believe. Included in those reports is also the debt service for 2020, 2018, 2019 through 2022 as well. That report was added to this folder. Let me see if there's other reports in here. That's the debt service schedule, we'll talk about the operational budget for finance and data processing.
What are we looking at right now, Richard, for, and I don't know if you can answer this quite yet, but do we know what the debt service payment is going to be based on this proposed budget? I mean, I looked through this packet and I did not, unless I missed it, is there someplace in this munis budget report that tells us what the debt service payment, what is that? Or where is that, I should say?
Combined, the general fund is 2 million. Combined with 3.3 million, but that's, projected for next year, that's budgeted. And we have to get a finalization of what our debt service is going to be on the 11,900,000 we're receiving next week, because I need to know what the payment requirements for principal and interest. I've estimated at $500,000 is sort of between water and sewer funds based on the percentage of the borrowing. I think it was 70% for water, 30% for general. But now that we reduced the amount, when we did the budget, we were looking at 16 million. Now we're only about 12 million. And then also know it's going to determine what our minimum requirement is for principal interest payment next year. So that should be reduced in the general fund and water fund because of the way it made principal. But I think it's about 3.3 million without knowing the number off the top of my head. I know general fund should be 2,084,000 based on the numbers we put together for the 23 budget.
So the payment out of the general fund, is that what you're saying? It will be how much? 2 point?
Budgeted so far for 2023, unadjusted, what we know the final numbers should be for the span, 2,084,000. I think that's what we see down towards the bottom of the report. It's in the 19 section. Account numbers. 1955 something or other.
Is that adjusted based on the reserve, debt service reserve that we have that pays towards that as well?
No. The reserve payments are all part of the 3.3 million, but the general fund benefits from the debt service reserve for the EFC funding, and it benefited this year for the return on the parking for the Broad Street lot. For the next 9 years, the parking fund's going to benefit 70,000 a year from that FRP return fund. So it's cutting the debt service in half for the parking fund for the next 9 years. It's supposed to be about 140 a year, now it's going to be about 70,000. Which was great that they finally sent us the funding after 6.5 years. It was worth the wait. I think the debt service schedule that we projected for 2023 is actually in the mayor's budget. Huh? Well, the mayor's budget, I think, is out on the website, and it's down at the very bottom of all the reports. Very, very bottom.
You mean the appendices in the beginning?
I'm not sure where he actually put it in the budget.
Where is that here?
I didn't have my budget on me.
I think I remember being down towards the bottom, and you see all the different notes will be all are listed on the left hand side. And then different funds are across the time.
This is the- I know.
But you can see it from here.
And then that's. So I kind of see that.
Maybe it's not here.
That's right. It is the same schedule that was included in the budget that are.
I won't see it. Sorry.
So here's.
It is the document that is included in your packet, in today's meeting packet.
Today's meeting.
Correct. It's called. Twenty 23 debt schedule.
Draft. Should say.
It's a draft, yes.
Okay,
That means
I
that
did see that.
we're
Okay.
waiting to finalize the numbers based on the borrowing for next week. Thursday,
Next Thursday?
and then we pay off the band from March, right? So we get this in just in time to pay off. That maturity.
How much is that again? The debt that's matured?
2.7 million. So we got that in out of the 11,857,000. We have that 36,000 of interest for that. Interest projection for this new borrow for next year is $500,000. That's at 4%.
That's what I was gonna ask you. So we're.
The band, I think I told you the band that we floated in March
Mhm.
was 1.17. Now this is
4.117. Now, is that a firm number or can that still change?
what,
That 4.17%?
Fixed.
That's the
that's
fixed.
what it was sold.
Okay,
Actually, it sold for 4.5. But the winning bid paid a $64,000 premium to buy the rate down to 4.17, so they can win bid on the issue. So there's a bond premium that they're paying, which we received, and then, of course, that helps offset the interest somewhat next year. It's kind of a nightmare to organize for, but once again, you give me the funding, we'll find a place to put it and make sure it can't work for it.
okay. So I have a question about OPEB costs on the budget. Do you want to wait? Do we want to wait until we're doing the budget meeting, the actual council budget workshop, or is that something I can ask now?
We should, if that's going to be a budget related question, we can postpone it in this.
And we only go with the related costs that are disclosed in any of our financial statements. Now, what you see in the audited financial statements is a projection by the actuary to say, this is the future costs discounted to the present value for all of the anticipated post-employment healthcare costs for all of the employees, roughly an 85-year period going forward to the end of their lives. So it's a number that's discounted to about 190 million. It really doesn't mean much, because who knows what's going to happen in 5 years. The actuaries themselves, the only thing they're going at 10 years is credible information to say that we can rely somewhat on what it's going to cost. So New York State doesn't allow us to fund any OPEB future costs, so there's no actual expense anywhere. MLD recognizes it as an approved liability for their portion.
3.2, any further questions on the various reports? Item 4, public comment. Anybody in the chamber wishes to comment? And is there any new business from for this meeting? Seeing none, I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn. Second by Councilor Gill, second by Councilor Canales, all in favor? Unanimous. Okay, the rest of this meeting is a work session to address council questions and potential changes to the mayor's proposed budget. The lineup, I did end up adding a couple people on because it's a smaller budget, so we'll have the building inspector address any questions regarding the proposed budget. To clarify any questions about his department's proposed budget.
Joe, where is your budget on the meeting? Where did that go? Page 9.
Comes after animal control. Like, page 9.
Okay, do you have one question? So it's. So I see a reduction, 28% reduction in vehicle supplies.
Let's talk about issues with.
Oh. I don't think I have that here. So 28% reduction in vehicle supplies.
Okay, so what that actually translates into in the 2022 budget, I had 3,000 in vehicle supply for gas, essentially, so. The price of gas just shot up, we had to actually adjust our budget, so we did a budget transfer, it was up to 6,300 to cover those costs, and so I put in the budget for this year 4,500. So the reduction is actually from what our budget transfer was. So the 4,500 is actually up from 3,000 from the year before, but that's just the gas prices.
Yeah, it's that.
It's a spike like that, we had no control.
That makes sense. And then you've got a 57% increase in office supplies.
Okay, so that's just. You know, it's 57%, but it's, you know, when you want $800, it's just in case, you know, prices are going up a lot and lots of stuff, so. Just to make sure.
Are you going to need any vehicles or anything coming up? Or?
Okay, so we actually have vehicles in the budget for this year, and we couldn't get them. So we're just carrying that money over for next year, and hopefully we can get them in 2022. One of the things is the vehicle maintenance, vehicle parts is up a little bit in this budget, but that's if we have to carry this fleet over. We can't get new vehicles. We're gonna have to maintain this fleet that we have. All right, so we get the vehicles, we're not gonna need that money to maintain a couple of the older vehicles that we have. So we do have money in the budget for that, it's just a matter of trying to get them.
Now, are you trying to obtain electric vehicles?
We were hoping for hybrids. And we just, we couldn't get any this year, we had to get on a waiting list, so we're going to set on that. Yeah, we're hoping that it was like the MLB has hybrid.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Library. as most everybody knows, the library operates independently. And is here to answer any questions that may come up about her budget or the library's budget. I will say thank you, Ian and team, for, did they ratify the contract?
Yes, yes, the board ratified this, so that.
Okay. 4 of the city's 5 contracts that have been completed in the last year and a half. So thank you for getting that resolved, and thanks to your team and your staff for seeing the value and getting that complete. So appreciate it. Most will note in this year's budget that the local share to the library has increased from last year, which is understandable. Last year, there was a decrease.
It's 42, Joe.
Last year, there was a decrease in the local share to the library. And her credit came to my office with a much higher number than what was allocated into this year's budget. And I went back to Ann several times and said, please, just like I did with every department head, please, can you just look one more time? And again, to Ann's credit, came back with a number that was less than about $30,000 or $40,000 less than the original request in this year's budget. In the original department request, that then got translated into this budget.
We went back and cut pretty much a little bit from every line, took 7,000 out of our book budget. Took some money out of office supplies, contracted services, wherever we could pull any money at all, we just, so it's a pretty bare bones, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's pretty tailored where it is right now.
And every department head did that, by the way. So, again, to Ann's credit, shaving off $30,000 out of the local share. Same thing with Joe, the clerk of all people, who have the smallest budgets, but same thing happened across the board. You'll see that the change in expenses from the year before. The library is projected to operate less than last year, about 25% less than last year in total expenses. Last year, they operated about $1.2 million. That was their revised budget in 2022. I'd say last year is in 2022. Right? Sort of referring to 2022, they operated about 1.2. This year, the 2023 budget is projected to be about $920,000. So almost $100,000 less than they operated last year. Any questions for Ann? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
You don't have to stay.
Well, thank you for your work on it.
All right, we'll talk about the mayor's office budget. The mayor's office budget expenses are coming in at about 11.46% less than last year. We do have a community initiative for funding projects and events that Courtney is heading up, so we are looking at the ideal increase of about a 25% increase to revenues that come into this office, specifically for those events. You'll see, I think primarily the biggest change you'll see from last year is payroll. As you will recall, moving the senior planner out of CDO into the mayor's office associated with all the funding and the payroll associated with that. Moved into the mayor's budget. Telephone costs, as with all telephone costs across the city, are increased, so that includes all IT costs. The fee for service for the assessment office is the same. In fact, it was reduced, from 2021 budget per the agreement with the county. That says anytime a full assessment service client comes onto the county, we get a reduction in our per lot rate. I will also note that it, for this budget, it is the intention to increase the publicity budget as well, which is also accounted for in there. The revised amount for the fees for service under corporation council is indicative of the trailing off of litigation that the city is facing. That's what that accounts for. Let's see, overall revised, the mayor's budget again should be reduced from 2022 from 1.019 million to 895,000. You can find the mayor's budget on the munis reports.
Page 4.
So 112,1121. That is the no. Or that's the account, starting the account number. Any questions? Comments? Community development, I included that obviously in the budget. That does fall under the mayor's budget. As a reminder, I'm sorry. I will say that Courtney has put together a very comprehensive plan for 2023, which will most likely get into a second press release to announce all of the events that we're hosting in the city, free events that we're hosting in the city, that has been done in partnership with a number of other community groups, as well as headed up by the city too. So same thing with the senior planner. We should have been a fantastic add to the city. Could not be happier with your skills and talents, and we really appreciate the work that you've been doing to get planning and these projects ramped up to come into some fruition here. So it's nice to see the progress being made. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions about those senior planner, community engagement, mayor's office? Thank you. Matt Miller with community development. Community development. We did have a conversation not too long ago regarding the movement of staff, which I believe that staffing sheet was provided to council via email. But you would see that the number of employees moved out of CDO/rec complex into the DPW budget is reflected somewhat in across the CDO budget or the CDO fund and the rec complex fund number 2. So overall, compared to the compared to the 2022 budget, the mayor's proposed budget decreases that departmental budget by roughly $700,000. Now, it's not a straight savings as indicated, there is some savings with consolidating resources into one department. Or moving this, like, for example, the senior planner, moving the senior planner over into my office. Increases my office's payroll, but decreases the CDO payroll. At the same time, you'll see that as with my office, decrease in expenses by 11% going into 2023. This office reduces the 2022 revised amount of 1.007 million in 2022 as a revised budget to $301,000 as proposed in the mayor's budget. Note that that does not diminish the workload or the projects and management that Matt and his team need to undertake, because that doesn't change. It is mostly just spread across different departments, and Matt works with Alicia and Courtney and Mike to implement the projects that he and his office have initiated.
Any questions I can answer on community development, rec complex, art and funds?
Sorry, just before, as a reminder to council. Matt Miller's office and the CDO office was responsible for spinning up the parking kiosks and the parking charges and the rules and the relationships with the parking vendor. Now that it is spun up, that overarching overseeing of that will be moved to the police department, with Matt supporting and continuing to support any back and forth with vendors and major issues with parking as a whole.
He's been charging for parking about 1 month now, have
Yeah.
October
11th, I think.
October 11th,
The
yeah.
day that was in.
Well, tell us about that. Yeah, how's it going?
Need a couch to come. You know?
So for the permit side of things, we've actually sold considerably more permits than we were originally expecting to. We're approaching 400 with a total revenue of in excess of $60,000 for the permit side of things. For the other revenue generating components of the system, people paying at the kiosk, coins and credit cards, people paying via the mobile, the Park mobile app. We're looking at an annual trend towards a total revenue for that, roughly $50,000. So between the permits and the payments at the kiosks themselves and the mobile app, we are looking at in excess of $100,000 by the end of the first year of operations, which would more than supplant the roughly $71,000 that currently is charged to downtown property owners as part of the special assessment district, and transitioning the burden of maintaining the parking system from those property owners to the people who use the system was fundamentally the intention of implementing this new high technology system in the first place. So
You said the permits and payments is more than,
yeah, the SAP fees collected on an annual basis are about 71,000, which has been used to maintain the downtown parking lots. We're looking somewhere in the area between 100 to 120,000 if current trends hold, extrapolating a considerable distance in the future. But that would more than compensate for the reduction or elimination of those SAP fees come 2024.
so in the parking lot line of the budget where it says regular pay, who's included in that table for the parking lot?
So that is both the city's parking enforcement officers and the city's downtown labor, who is out of DPW.
So 2 for full-time parking enforcement officers. And what are the hours that these people work?
We enforce 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, so pretty standard hours for those 2 officers.
And what does the public, the DPW employee do?
He handles all of the downtown maintenance, emptying of trash cans, sweeping streets and any number of other things.
So is that payroll split between your payroll line and another, or is it completely the case?
I believe the entirety of that employee's payroll is charged to the park department. That's accurate.
So in reality, we're only making people pay between 10 and 2 in the afternoon because you can't get a ticket when somebody's been there, or is that immediate? At 8 o'clock, if you're not paid, you're gonna pay you a ticket for that.
Correct. If you're in one of the lots, yeah. If you're on the street, you get the first 2 hours free anywhere. But yeah, because
And
we're
the last
only,
2 hours.
yeah, because we're only enforcing the 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you can effectively park on the street after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, not have to worry about getting. So the effective enforcement hours are really 8 to 2, but. Yeah.
Trying to get that straight. A lot of people don't understand that yet,
Mhm.
especially at the county parking lot. It is a little confusing.
The last-
It's not marked off, you know, so. I had to go walk down there and actually check it out, and say, these are our spots, and these are the county spots.
But the lots are always paid, right? It's like as soon as you go in there at 8 in the morning, you pay. for it.
Yeah, the county lot is the exception. All day, Monday through Friday, you get the first hour free, but all of the city-owned lots, you pay from the moment you park there.
And Durkee Street, obviously, the northern half of Durkee Street.
Yeah,
is
that's-
still 2 hours.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Any other questions about parking, rec complex, CDO office?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Finance, Richard. The finance office covers finance, data processing, billing. You'll see in that budget that it is a bit more robust with expenses and revenues, even though Richard's office may not generate $4.9 million in non-property taxes. It does flow through his office and is reported as such out of his office. You'll see that the expenses going into this year, a little bit increased from last year. And again, a lot of the expenses that we've seen increased are primarily due to the adjustment of inflation over the 2022 revised budget, which was revised, a lot was revised to address the inflationary transfers or transfers due to inflationary impact. And then also the increases in payroll due to contract negotiation. So a lot of the payroll increases that we see paid primarily on that. But primarily on those increases. Expense wise, total expenses between 2022. The finance department was 12.192 million compared to 12.974 million. As proposed in this budget. Revenues increased from 21.8 million to 23 million, so a healthy 1.5 or 1.3 million or so.
Revenues from where?
From various sources that are funded through the finance department.
So I've got the 2023 budget for finance and data processing, total 975. You said number 2.
The difference between in expenses.
Oh, okay, expenses versus revenues.
Correct. I'm just comparing the expenses from last year to this year.
Okay,
And looking at the mayor's proposed budget.
yeah, the last report I ran for throughout October 31st, just not today. You know, the payroll is only 311,000 that day versus 418,000. We've had significant absences and reductions in forces from retirement in August. So we're not going to come close to 418 this year, and the projection for next year, 3 to 8, looks consistent with what we've been doing. No transition of the accountant retiring and a deputy chamberlain coming on.
Have we, I saw that was posted in that was included in the payroll for the deputy chairman. Do we have an active list? Yeah, or,
I believe Councilor Kelly has been updating the weekly spreadsheet that has included updates on the progress being made towards interviewing and hiring a deputy general. We've had 2 rounds of interviews. Good candidates. We have in-person interview with both of the 2 candidates, and Richard and I need to have a conversation about how to proceed with one or the other candidate.
There is no list from civil service.
There is no list from civil service, but we will have a provisional appointment to that position pending the list coming out, or pending the test coming out to generate a certified eligible list.
is that a March exam? The civil service exam for that in March.
I don't think so.
The accountant position is scheduled for next February, but I don't know when the deputy chamberlain is. It might be next year sometime.
Yeah.
But we asked them to conduct that last year. Yeah, they do it when they say the state wants to plan for it.
Yeah, typically when we have a vacancy, we place the vacancy, civil service, borders and tech, and New York State says here's when the test is.
Unless it's for accounting position, because they can get it right away. If they need a list to fill it, when it comes to us, a lot of times civil services, well, you gotta show that you have vacancy first. And so we showed them a vacancy, they studied the chamberlain position for years, but they still haven't scheduled the test. I think it might be next year, though. I think I saw something about it.
So we could provisionally appoint, but not have the civil service exam scheduled, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So just.
Sometimes you can go for years before you get a chance to take the exam, and of course, if you don't score in the top 3
Mhm.
in either of 2 iterations of the test, you know, get out of the job much from the expert.
So we could have a provisional appointment in place for a year, 2 years, whatever.
Certain jobs are like that. One of the best examples was meter reader for MLD. We had a person in the position for 2+ years. Luckily, she scored 100 because 4 other people did too. She was not out of the job. Which is, it's kind of a contradictory way to conduct this, because with unions, it's like, why do you need civil service anymore? But it's a whole New York State hierarchy, bureaucracy. They think that they serve a purpose for hiring. To us, to me, what I've seen, it's been county record. But if you do get this ahead of time, it makes it very simple to hire through their process. So we prefer to have a list of them to answer questions, but we're going to look at this hire. We just got a list for typists, and we've got someone that we're going to hire for the agent. Went back to the job at good candidates. Look at the it's there has.
I think it's ended.
Good.
Is that done? I think it's ended today.
Probably the next time.
I think it's actually there.
And she's a candidate from the nursing home Fallout.
Yeah, no, what position?
Guy very familiar with, right?
What position is that?
Typist,
For typist.
which is, the front counter work. And she's also looking to make a transition in the city. As part of the succession planning, she wants to advance, she wants to go to a higher level position, say, senior clerk, senior table personnel associate, so she's looking for a future, which is great.
I have some questions about the budget that are not specific to the finance department. Oh, go ahead.
That money gets up there. Other payments and employee benefits, okay, everybody kind of slopes that off. Being that I'm not gonna make it clear to this, I wanna let everybody know exactly what those things mean. Been kind of an alarming trend, and Richard is right, that's not an exact figure. What the estimates are and how much we owe on that. However, they do show trends. Over the past, from January 1st, 2020 to January 1st, 2022. It has gone up $41 million. That shows a trend that we are incurring a lot more expense on our employee benefits. Okay,
You're saying the actual cost is gonna be 41 million?
this is the projected cost, but they use the same projection, so it's showing a trend, right? Now, it isn't going to affect us big time this year or next year, or whatever, but everybody always kicks the can down the road on this. But in fact, it is important, as Moody's in their last report said, failure to reduce long-term liabilities, especially the very elevated OPEB liabilities. Well, we've actually added, added quite a bit to that very elevated, it's very, very elevated. We need to, and it's not you, Richard, I'm not singling you out on this or anything, but the city needs to do something to mitigate some of these costs for the future. And we need to be talking about that now. No one ever talks about this stuff, but it is a very important part of our budgetary process. It's money that's going to be paid later. And I know everybody I've ever talked to about things like this, it's like NDMP, not during my term. I don't need to talk about this. Somebody else will figure this out down the road. And it is an important thing to take into consideration. And I know we should be looking at mitigating this. It's probably through negotiations, whatever, but it far exceeds their projected number far exceeds the inflation. So that tells me there's something there that we need to keep an eye on, or at least look at in the future. I'm not directly saying it has to be addressed today, because you're correct. We pay a little portion of that every year. But that portion is going to continue to get bigger over the years. We need to pay attention and keep our eye on the prize of it, that we have to keep that within limits. And I don't think those costs are going to end up going down this year. I can't picture medical insurance going down or any of these other things. So I would wish that people would at least keep an eye on that. I'm sure you would agree, Richard, that, it is a future expense. You're not, you and I won't have to suffer through that number of our terms, but, I'm not making this a second career, so I wanted to point it out to everyone that we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, is it true that as the head count increases, the OPEB liability increases?
Yeah, that's another source of that increase.
So unfortunately, the solution is to reduce headcount. Or there's an R, okay, there's more.
Employee contributions to the healthcare costs are a big key to this, especially the retirees. Majority of our retirees contribute nothing to healthcare costs for the city. They get it for free. So long term, reducing that cost is going to be mitigated on or predicated on having a reduced workforce, a reduced benefit costs, or an increase in employee contributions taken to retirement. The city could set aside funding if we are allowed to in the New York State rules, like they do in the private sector, for future costs. You build a fund for future retirement, for future post-employment healthcare costs. You fund it each year. You say, okay, here's what your normal cost is for the year, and here's what you're going to put aside for future periods. Private businesses allow to do that. NLP assumes that they do it, and I told you that they have an expense that they don't really fund it. They don't really earn the money aside anywhere for this whole type of cost. We're not allowed to. New York State hasn't legislated to allow for it at all. So, and I know that Moody's assigns like 30% impact for this OPEB analysis as a shock and awe. And they want everybody to be really cognizant of it because it's a factor that happens more in the East where you got the old time unions and New York, New Jersey and so forth. You don't have it all the way across the United States in different states. It's a unique situation for the East Coast and New York State especially. So they assign a lot of weight to it by saying, hey, look, you gotta worry about this future. But it's not anything that anybody can do anything about. Financially, right now, you can't fund it. You can put money aside and earn on it and say, this is for our future costs, and it's not allowed to do it on the future state law. And they know that. Moody's knows that. They even assign severe weight to the New York State pension fund. And they say, hey, here's 58 million that you owe on that, the city of Plattsburgh. We have no control over what they do with any of that. None
Well,
whatsoever.
unfortunately, that goes away at some point in people's careers when they retire.
Well,
we don't
New York
continue
State,
funding
New York State,
that.
48% of the value fund like it did in 2008, 2009, and never had an answer for why. That increased our contributions for retirement from $1.2 million. Just 3 years later, it was 3.2 million. 166% increase. New York State was the problem with that. All the cities, villages, towns, municipalities, whatever. We suffered the impact of it. And of course, Moody's is saying, okay, this is something else that you have to weigh into this rating for this particular bond issue for this municipality, that this is out there, but it's like, we have no control of what's happening.
I know I was in a part of it, right? It doubled and then it tripled. Yeah, it was.
And so if New York State makes a mistake, why should that affect the bond rating for the city of Plattsburgh? Yeah, it is an additional financial obligation, but
Well, they made us pay.
yeah, and you know what? They haven't really reduced those elevated contributions, even though they're doing really well with the fund. The investment results have been great and they're well funded. They're not reducing it. And why? They want a lot of cushion to play with in case something happens again. That's my opinion.
I do think that could happen again. Sometimes.
Well, the state is supposed to be invested in safe, secure, long-term, low-risk funds. How do you lose 48% of it? You put something into something pretty risky, and it didn't pay off for you. And of course, there was financial meltdown in 2000. That was a problem. So could it happen again?
Of course it could.
Sure.
How do we prepare for that?
We really can't do much about that, because once again, we have all these people that are out in retirement already, and the state supposedly has them funded. We're just funding for the future retirement, our active employees now. However, they lose half the funds, they're gonna charge us additional contributions for our active employees, enough to make up for what they don't have in the fund to pay for our retirees and the rest of the retirees in New York State. So that, it's out of our hands, but then again, who's gonna hold our feet to the fire about it? So some of these rating analyses, to me, it's like, gotta, look at it with a grain of salt. It's like, what's really important? What we're budgeting now, what the cost is, we have to pay now. The pay as you go is the real key issue. Yeah, we're paying $7 million a year in healthcare costs. Yeah, we're paying $2.7 million for retirement costs. Those are real numbers. And we have to have them budgeted and covered. What's gonna happen 85 years from now with healthcare? What's the pension fund gonna do?
I am very concerned about 5 to 10 years. from now.
Sure.
That's where we're headed. It's showing a disturbing trend.
Well, this next year,
And
it's a 14% increase in healthcare costs projected by actuary, and we budgeted for that. And that's the highest increase we've had since I've been here. So,
see, I agree with you, Richard. There isn't any immediate thing you can do, but I guess my point is that if you don't take some measures now to next year, year after, you're gonna end up in a bigger hole. We need to guard against that.
Like you said, looking at contract negotiations, looking
Yep.
at where and when those opportunities arise.
Yeah, well, back in the day when everybody got full free healthcare, somebody paid for it. That was a thing they could do. When I first started work, just about everybody's paid for all your healthcare benefits. It has changed immensely since then. And no one can support that, pay for that out of somebody's.
We still have a very low contribution rate as an organization, 15% is low. It used to be 25, and then in order to get self-funded plan, the union made a 10% reduction of that. So we went down to 15%, but I don't think you'll find too many organizations out there that are as low as 15%. Some are 50, some are 90, depending on, I mean, you guys see it more than I do in the private sector, I'm sure. 45%. 45% contribution.
Yeah, but that's pretty unsustainable to 25% for people. I negotiated that 25% down, 15 down, and the city got substantial savings on the self-funded plan.
I'm sorry, we're gonna,
Yeah.
this is not, sorry, I appreciate it, it's not.
But I think it's 45%. 45%. Yeah. That's sustainable for some people, I guess.
That's for US payroll. If we have people that are Canadian payroll, we have to do QPP, CPP, we have to do everything. To have someone on payroll from Canada and process 58%.
So the point of that is that 15% could be looked at.
So I have a couple of questions on the
Yes.
budget in general.
Yes.
So I'm probably things that you're gonna answer, no. So don't go far.
That was
So as a-
second from the other one.
As I'm now going through the budget and I can see in various places, this 8,000 fund, retirement ERS, right? So I
Yeah.
see it in various places in the
Yeah.
budget, up 51%, up 518%. So, why is that sporadic here? What does that represent? Is that kind of connected to our conversation about funding that retirement?
Those are the numbers of the projected invoices we're going to receive from New York State next year for retirement. It's also reflective of us allocating that cost differently to make sure that we have covered for different funds for the amount of people that are there. Some should have gone down, some should have gone up. The overall increase of the projected invoices for 2023 versus the estimated invoices for 2022, and I just got the annual actual that I didn't pull them up yet. It's a 16% increase across the board for retirement contributions.
So why does it show up, under an account and then a fund at different places? Does it represent different departments?
Yes, each fund has its own employees, and each fund has to fund its own retirement costs.
Okay,
And so that's why that's in there for all benefits, retirement, healthcare, disability, workers' compensation, social security. Every one of them, it's like its own little set of accounts. Cookie jar account. Fund 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
the other question I had is, where in this budget, if at all, like, and I couldn't find it, where is the retro police pay? In this,
If you look on the, payroll line in the actual sheet that I shared with you, it's baked into the regular pay of the police department.
so it's on their payroll.
Correct.
131240 is 1100.
So with that in mind, that's 408,000. Again, this is a structurally balanced budget. All the money that we're expending, we're receiving. When you look at that retroactive payment, that last final retroactive payment, we will not be incurring that additional expense moving forward after 2023. So, short of major increases in that department, which also we don't expect, we should see a good healthy decrease in payroll expense because of that.
Yeah, that payment will get the very first payroll in January 2023.
And that's about $400,000, right?
About 408.
408.
Yeah.
Those are all the questions I have. I don't know about anybody else, but those are the questions. I have.
Council Moore, Council Buck,
Make your student.
Council Talon.
Run by the, that's good, right?
Council Doyle.
I just have a question about, when do we vote on this budget? It looks like, the last scheduled meeting is on the 17th. That's the same day as the meeting of the.
We have a meeting scheduled for December 15th. December 15th.
Regular council.
That's the last meeting of the year. It certainly is, sorry.
It's usually wrong.
Yeah, if we are all, I mean, you know, again, this is the council budget. We have 2 more meetings that cover,
November 17th, November 1st, or December.
oh,
1st?
no, that we're reviewing
Oh, I'm sorry.
departmental budgets.
That's November 14th and 17th, looks like the last.
14th.
We moved actually everything on the 14th because we were.
Do we have everything on the 14th? So the rest of the budget, or the rest of the budget reviews on the 14th?
So the 17th is the scratch, and we're not gonna have budget meeting on the 17th.
No, so I mean, like technically, if there are no other resolutions, or if, you know, we'll wait for council to provide resolutions. For adjusting the mayor's budget. Along with those resolutions will come the financial impact up or down, revenues and expenses based on those changes, requested changes based on the resolution. That information will come with the resolution. But short of that, if, you know, if the council, if we get through next Monday and have reviewed all of the departmental budgets, then there are no changes. I would just say put it on the 17th and press it.
Okay, the 17th could be the.
It could be, I mean, like, unless I'm missing something and there's like, oh, we need 4 more weeks to go through this.
I don't think anybody's come forward with any resolutions changes.
Right.
And I don't know if they're any important coming or not.
When are we going to get the capital budget?
The capital budget is in this budget. The capital plan, the capital program, it's in this budget.
So, for example, last year, we had a printout that was, I think was document, we should say it now. It's like 4 or 5 pages long, so this every single thing, told us every single thing that was part of our capital plan, the funding source and the year. And it spans out over several years. It's really broken down item by item. I don't have it with me. I have it in my bag at home. So that's what I was looking for. Not that. It was more, really much more, what I'm thinking was much more detailed. We got a really detailed capital plan last year over several years with every single purchase, what fund and so forth.
Page 21 of our.
Oh, no, it's not that, but it doesn't, it's not specific and detailed like the one that we got last year. That's what I was hoping we would get.
Well, you'll get that from Public Works, probably early in the year next year. That's usually when they publish it.
It wasn't just public works, they had the whole city, every single project and purchase from the entire city.
I think you probably have to bring that in.
Yeah, I didn't bring it with me tonight, but we got it last year. And it's far more detailed. That's what I'm looking.
This is the next.
Very specific. It's not contract. It is a breakdown of, this is the purchase, this is the year we're gonna do it, this is the funding, so it's like column by column, item by dollar amount, funding, I mean, it's really, really detailed.
Normal capital plan.
Right, that's
There's a 5-year plan with the summary total,
Right.
and then at the bottom you had a summary of the funding
Correct.
for just the first year. Like 2023, where the final.
right, so I'm wondering if we're.
Let me dig around the board. Let me see. I think I know what you're talking about. Let me just dig around.
Sure. Pardon me, but
I put it in, I just looked at this budget here. It does have a capital project budget for 5-year summary. It does consolidate. It looks like it can consolidate where the project is happening, under what category it's happening. And then the funding source for those years. So it's a summary of the project, or where the project's coming from, and the funding source in that same year.
the plan we have right now shows, every one of
But I think I know what you're talking about, Councilor Gates.
Yeah, it's like, here's a comp, like, it's, you know, the sewer fund, or the sewer plant, here's the, you know, all the different downtown improvements, equipment, buildings and so.
Well, we got
forth.
lunch.
do have that.
Yeah, it was very detailed, it's
Yeah.
broken down item by item.
That's right.
This one's general. I'd like to see.
That's probably the summary pages.
I forgot it. He's right.
So we have the detail on that.
So I'm not prepared, not that I'm, preparing resolutions, but I'm not prepared to vote on this next week, 17th. I'm just telling the council, I'm not ready.
Maybe we have for.
I would like more time once I have that breakdown of the capital plan. I need some time to digest all this information and take another look at it. Before I'm prepared to vote. I'm only talking about myself. But that's my input at this
Well, I'd like to, I guess to echo what you're saying, I'd like to hear we have a couple more sessions, I believe. Just like to hear everything. Feel like we had thoroughly gone through everything. I know generally we do that, just to make sure there isn't any.
It's pretty well.
Anything we've missed,
Budget.
Yeah, but we still need to hear everything. I mean, I think it's a little preemptive to set a date for the vote. I mean, it would be great if, but I don't think, I don't think we can commit to voting on that.
For our next common council meeting then is December 1st. Might that be a possibility?
Because no, to get through Monday's.
Thursday's a possibility, versus a possibility. Again, I'm standing firm on that. The budget that we were handed as a council is probably the most well-worked budget that any of us has seen. Why not? In the city, to just go through the motions to say that, well, it's very well done. It's very balanced.
It follows a template that made it created last year to present us with a zero balance budget. And then through efficiencies gained throughout the year to come up with a surplus, and that's exactly what happened in 2021. And I do believe that's what's going to happen in 2022. Yeah. Unless we face some sort of catastrophe. So basically, we're looking at a template that was used to create last year. So it's going very well as far as that. So I'd be happy to move this budget tomorrow, tonight, came our way, but. the people.
Yeah, we have one more session.
I guess they need more time.
I need more time. Just speaking on my behalf.
Could we do it on December 1st?
I don't know. We haven't seen my big budgets yet.
Well, that would give you over 2 weeks to analyze or do whatever you need to do. To be happy.
And I do have to clarify that these, and I'm not, well, as long as it gets voted on before January 15th. Okay, that's the rule, if it doesn't get voted on by January 15th, then this is it. Okay, so we'll work together.
The sooner we do it, however, the sooner our department heads can start planning year for next year. So it'd be nice if we could do it on the 17th.
Well, hopefully we plan for next year already.
Because it's here. I mean, I don't think anybody here requesting a little extra time to look at this budget is an appropriate thing. Some of us work full time and can use that extra time. But I mean, December 1st seems like a good goal. And if we can't make December 1st, we have the 15th. Like, I don't understand. We're not under a gun. So let's respect other council members' needs and take our time. Is that okay? I agree.
I agree too. December 1st is a very good day.
Good goal, good goal.
If we can make it.
Yeah, great goal.
Just a note, I have shared also with council the public meetings for the departmental reviews. And again, we did a line by line review of each department in this packet. So if there are any very specific questions about what each line for each department is for, I certainly would encourage folks to review that. Again, any questions about the budget, I'm available to answer those questions. Any further questions, conversations, comments tonight regarding this budget? No? Okay, thanks, folks.